written down.
I think he means the feats.
He has 3 Buried Ruin. This deck is sweet looking. 4 Sphere of the Suns, a bunch of spell bombs.
So we got a Boros Forge Master.
Yeah.
And
all right.
Anthony Molinari on the right. For those of you who are just joining us, this is the Star City Games Live Open Series here in St. Louis. I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Brian Kibler. It's round 3, standard. We see an Avacyn's Pilgrim opening up for Pat Cox. Pat Cox, often well known for his play of aggressive decks.
He is a universal advocate of Zoo. He actually had some pretty funny posts on Twitter over the past few days. He's Wildest Nakadal on Twitter. If you want to see his visual representation of how to build your modern Zoo deck into a legacy Zoo deck, you should check it out. It's pretty entertaining. So Anthony follows up with a Sphere of the Suns. Both players accelerating their mana. Pat Cox swinging for 1 with his Pilgrim. And a Mox Opal comes down for Anthony. So if he plays another artifact next turn, he's going to have access to a lot of mana. Pat with the triple non-basic lands to go with his Pilgrim. And that Pilgrim's still just attacking, so probably nothing. I don't know what's going on Pat's side of the board, but it is not much.
I mean, he could be having a Geist Honored Monk in his hand.
Yeah, his hand could be Monk, just a bunch of Planeswalkers.
Could be like Monk Elspeth, something like that.
I'm sort of surprised that he would have kept a hand that can't cast anything from this position, but Anthony plays a Tumble Magnet. Now, if you were Anthony, it looks like he's casting a... Oh, no, 2 mana.
Okay. So I'm Anthony.
You're Anthony, let's say. Would you use your Tumble Magnet to tap that Pilgrim during Pat Cox's upkeep?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, because he's not doing anything. And he didn't do it.
No,
and
he still could after he draws.
It might forestall something actually happening for a whole turn.
Right. That's in this sort of position. I think it's very important to recognize what could your opponent possibly have in their hand, and that's the sort of thing you can have in his hand. And that's the sort of thing that's actually very, very scary when you have a board of a bunch of stuff here. Did that go up or down?
It went up.
Yeah, so that's actually incredibly scary for Anthony because that threatens to wipe out his entire board.
Wouldn't it be bad if?
No, he ticked up. No, he did tick up.
Okay. He made men. I would have ticked it up.
I think I also would tick up and threaten to destroy half of Anthony's permanents.
I mean, I don't know what's in Pat's hand right now. I haven't been able to see it. We got 1 mana Galvanic Blast.
No, it looks like those are 2 artifacts. I think that's an Origin Spellbomb, and I think a Forge Master in his hand. There it is.
Okay, now, what he can do with this Forge Master is he can get Blightsteel Colossus, which is a pretty quick kill. Mm-hmm. Blightsteel Colossus is actually one of the cards that Wizards designed in the last couple of years that offends me.
Okay. He's certainly not going to care about him gaining life with that Elspeth if he does go get the Blightsteel Colossus. So yeah, I mean, if Pat Cox had ticked up here, Anthony's board position is just demolished.
Yeah, absolutely destroyed. Okay, so now I feel like there was a pair of really swingy turns that just happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both players have gone from not much to threatening some pretty serious stuff. Now, Pat does have 2 copies of Gavany Township in play, though only enough mana to activate 1. So he can definitely get in for a bunch of damage, but that Forge Master's got to look real scary. He has to be wondering what possible cards his opponent could get with it.
Whenever you see a Forge Master, I mean, Tinker was a good card. Being able to Tinker, even at the cost of 3 cards, is still ridiculous.
Yeah, Tinker, shockingly still good. Though,
bad Tinker is still good.
From this position, I don't know what Anthony's deck actually gets that's super scary for Pat. So
okay.
Now
in combat, he taps the guy. Now Pat does have 3 Oblivion Rings.
Yes.
So 3 Oblivion Rings.
That's what he's looking for right here.
And Pat ticks down and makes 3 more tokens, and I think he might have another Elspeth. There it is, and I think he's going to tick up this time. Oh no!
Jeez.
Oh. Let's end this game quickly.
I definitely would have ticked up that time.
Now, it looks like the Forge Master did not block.
No, I think it did.
No, there's still 3 tap tokens.
It did not.
I like blocking there.
I also like
it's like a 3/5. So, yeah. I mean, even a giant growth won't do it, and I would put Pat Cox on not playing Titanic growth.
Yeah, especially since I don't think it is legal. Is
Yeah,
it?
and Dismember is already going to kill it, so, like, there's just no uniqueness there for that. So, yeah. Now, Anthony, facing down 9 tokens,
and
a Pilgrim.
And Township.
Oh, and a Township.
So that's potentially lethal just next turn.
He does have 2 Slag Storms in his deck.
He also has Mindslaver.
Oh, he says go. He can tutor up. Let's
tutor
see,
up
a Mere Battlesphere.
And block. So, I mean, just think about how different this game would have been if he'd used that Tumbleweed to delay a turn.
He would have utterly devastated Pat. Sacrifices a token? Or it sacrifices the Origin Spellbomb in order to get a token.
I might have done that main phase in hope to draw a Slag Storm. Looks like his hand. Looks like that is a Slag Storm in his hand. Did he just draw that?
I think he just drew it.
Wow, that may have gone better if he'd done it during his own turn. So he can block, go get Blightsteel.
Well, he's declaring his blocks now, so I think he's dead.
Is he dead? Yeah, I think he's just dead. I think he did not really consider what was happening here.
Yeah, I don't think he was thinking about what happens.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Is there any life gain that he can do? He could.
No, there's only 7. It's only 7 getting through, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
The Pilgrim down there.
I know, that's the 7.
Oh, okay.
And that's only 14 damage.
3.
And so he Townships.
Tapped. Okay, got it. The tap. That's
so
what
he may actually win this game, because if Pat Townships. Well, no, because if Pat Townships, he just goes and fetches. He takes 14. Fetches Blightsteel, Slag Storms, kills him.
Yes.
I think that's actually how this is gonna play out.
And Pat says you're at 1.
Oh, he's mutagenic growthing! The mutagenic growth! There.
Oh.
That's lethal.
Oh.
And Anthony's sitting there with the Slag Storm he drew from the Spellbomb. That's gotta hurt. And there it is. That's lethal.
Oh, boy.
Oh, wow.
Oh, look at that. Look at the expression on Anthony's face. That's not a happy... that's one of the things to remember, is you have to play to your outs. You know what's in your deck, hopefully. Hopefully you know what's in your deck. Usually my rule of thumb is know your deck well enough that you can rattle it off to somebody. Yeah,
there are certain automatic habits that people get into doing, and things like, when you can do something as an instant, do it in your opponent's turn. And I think that's
end
something,
of your turnitis.
Right. That's something that people do far too much when they really have reason to do it otherwise. I actually at Worlds this year I played against Owen Turtenwald, and I just passed the turn with a Lightning Helix. Let him untap. Then went to Lightning Helix one of his creatures, and he actually negated my Lightning Helix. He boarded in negate, which is an amusing story in and of itself that I won't tell. But I should have just cast my Lightning Helix when it was tapped out. It didn't end up changing the way that the game resolved, but it was just there's no reason for me to let him untap his lands before I cast Lightning Helix. I'm casting Lightning Helix. Similarly, he's going to need to make that blocker, regardless of the way that this game progresses, and he puts himself in the position to draw a Slag Storm.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit more information, and perhaps that information will be really good news.
We actually have a tweet that he should have played 1 Contagion Engine.
Ooh.
If he did have a Contagion Engine to search up, that would have been pretty sweet.
Let's see what his sideboard says.
He has...
there are no Contagion Engines. Can you imagine Instant Engine?
What does Scrapyard Salvo do?
Scrapyard Salvo does damage equal to the number
of artifacts in your yard?
Damage to anything.
Damage to anything.
Yeah. And I think it might be all yards. Let's find out.
It's your yard, scrap slag.
Yeah, I believe that it's Slag Fiend that counts all yards and Salvo only counts your yard.
We will find out momentarily via the powers of the internet.
For the...
Well, one of the things that's really exciting about his sideboard, he has Platinum Emporium.
Okay, that's
so imagine if he had had that in that moment
that
too.
Been, yeah, it's like I will Mutagenic Growth. That seems like a card you'd have in your main deck.
I like that. I mean, I like a Platinum Angel style effect in the main. And just to make sure, red 1, sorcery, Scrapyard Salvo deals damage to target player, so it's not
Player,
anything,
yeah.
equal to the number of artifact cards in your graveyard.
So, I'm not... I guess sometimes you want to be a burn deck and sack all your artifacts?
I think it might be, that's the idea of what's going on there.
Man, that would have been so sweet if he just killed him with a Blightsteel Colossus.
On the other side of the table, so Pat has seen a ton of artifacts.
Yeah.
And he has 2 naturalizes in his board.
I'm guessing
So
those are coming in.
Those are coming in. He's seen, I think, enough to bring in Thrun.
I would likely bring in Thrun
Yeah,
here.
Thrun is good against tappy taps.
It's generally good against red decks in general.
Yeah.
Generally good against red decks in general. That was very repetitive.
Yeah, and when you're playing against a red general, it is still good.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Just trying to get more generals in there.
So how would you sideboard if you were Pat Cox? What cards do you think you're taking out here?
Well, first of all, I would probably consider Sword of War and Peace. Even though he's got a lot of artifact stuff, he might have red removal that I would want to protect something from. But I wouldn't consider it heavily. I like Thrun a lot, and Naturalize is definitely coming in. So the real thing is fit in the Naturalize and cut stuff to make the Naturalize happen.
I think the cards I don't like here
Mortarpod?
are Elish Norn and Mortarpod.
Yeah.
Those are the cards I really hate. So
We got an
have
Origin Spellbomb versus
game
Navason's
starting out.
Pilgrim.
It looks like Tempered Steel, but it's not. And now we have
Sphere of the Suns. I think I take out 2 Mortarpods and...
I think Mirren Crusader is pretty weak here.
yeah, there we go. So now we got 4 cards.
And Elish Norn.
That's 5 cards. That's 2
It's
Thrun.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep.
That's 2 Thrun,
1, 2, 3,
2 Naturalize,
4, 5.
and maybe 1 Sword of War and Peace as a Miser's War.
Yep. I think that's reasonable.
Okay. Avacyn's Pilgrim looks like it's coming on in. We get to Anthony. Anthony on taps. He's got 3 mana here. Looks like he's laying a Tumble Magnet. Maybe Anthony will see what happened the last time and decide to consider tapping the Avacyn's Pilgrim.
I think Tumble Magnet is one of those cards that people misplay very frequently.
Yeah.
It's a card that people will often use just prevent 2 damage. They just use it as just a couple healing salves when often where I think Tumble Magnet is at its best is defending your planeswalkers. It's
Absolutely.
at preserving your life total or your planeswalker loyalty when you need it, not just sort of spewing off and preventing damage here and there.
The fourth mana from Anthony. He lays what? Solemn. That's Jen's Thorin, the Solemn Simulacrum. Now, personally, I'm not sure how you feel about this, but all of the invitational cards, I think it should be mandated to the art department that they always have the invitational person
pretty
on it.
disappointing when an invitational card is reprinted without the original art,
It's not that hard.
or at least without that
All
player
I-
being depicted.
I don't need the original art. I want the player on the
Right.
card.
That's my feeling as well.
It'd be totally fine if there's Jens, but Jens doing something else rather than. And we see Naturalize. Naturalize comes down and hits the Tumble Magnet. This protects Pat from having his 5th mana being disrupted when he lays it. Probably right here. I think it's coming down. There it is. 5th mana, probably an Elspeth, maybe a Gideon.
And
There's the
Elspeth comes down, and I still think that does he go? No, he makes guys again. Here, I guess you have to make guys because you're facing the Solemn Simulacrum.
I definitely didn't like that plan the first time around, even though it ended up being a path towards victory.
Yeah.
Okay, we see...
Can I read your Swift Boots, please?
What do the Swift Boots do?
They're very swift, these boots.
They cost 2, and they are 1 to activate.
They give both haste and hexproof.
That's correct. So they are not as good as the old boots.
Galvblast takes down Elspeth, and Anthony passes the turn back.
Okay, Solemn Simulacrum here is definitely holding the fort against this little.
It looks like Anthony's
small
hand
army.
is Forge Master and Oblivion Ring. So if he actually needs 2 land to be able to Forge Master up. Oh, and he only has 1 charge left in that sphere. So if he had 2 additional mana, he could play his Forge Master, equip boots to it, use it, then equip the boots to Blightsteel Colossus and swing.
It's an old school phrase we used to use, but I can't say it on camera. But it had to do with boots. But,
All right, so we see a Precursor Golem.
Precursor Golem, awesome card. It was one of my favorite parts actually of the Worlds deck that Patrick
Precursor Golem is definitely
Chapin had together.
very, very interesting in a world where people are using Oblivion Ring to kill your things rather than targeted removal that hits your stuff.
Casts the Forge Master here, running out the Sphere of the Suns.
This is something that I find happens a lot in Sphere decks. That there are some Sphere decks like ramp decks that basically need to play their one big spell and the game ends. A lot of times you see decks use Sphere that actually need their mana much more than once.
Fiend Hunter takes
Fiend
out the
Hunter.
Golgotha Forge Master.
That's interesting. That's a one of that came in from Pat Cox's sideboard.
You know, that's absolutely reasonable.
I would certainly.
I mean, it's.
Agree
What do you
with
think
bringing
when
that
you
in.
see a Golgotha deck? They're probably going to bring out a Blightsteel Colossus.
They're going to do something big against me. So, Anthony does have Oblivion Ring in his hand, so he can Oblivion Ring that Fiend Hunter, get his Forge Master back.
Which is, I think, the plan.
Yeah,
There
which
it
is going to which is going to allow him to Swift Boot it.
Yep. Oh, Swift Boot Veterans. And then,
So
and we're going to
boot
Swift
up.
it. And let's see. Get the
So is he
Blightsteel.
he could get Blightsteel isn't really. I would totally get Blightsteel.
I would
here.
get Blightsteel.
I would just get Blightsteel and just send. I mean, you get to suit up your Blightsteel with the Swift Boots, so it is also hexproof. So it's not like you're threatening, you're under any sort of pressure to kill him right now, because you still have your Blightsteel next turn.
Here it
So
comes.
yeah, let's sack. We'll sack our Sphere. We'll sack our.
Solemn Simulacrum and the dead. Yeah, there we go.
So we draw a card too.
He doesn't have the mana to draw the card.
No, we draw a card from Solemn.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's got.
And then we go get Blightsteel Colossus, suit up Blightsteel Colossus, and get in there.
Wouldn't it have been sad if he drew the Blightsteel Colossus?
That would have been. Can you? No, you can't stack that in any sort of way. It's just
No.
a trigger. That would have been so miserable. I wonder how many times it's actually happened.
It has to happen sometimes, like. Oh.
Rawr.
I think the only person that I know who was publicly more offended about that card than me was Patrick Chapin.
It is the first one-hit kill in the history of Magic. I mean, Emrakul's effectively a one-hit kill, but it's not an actual one-hit kill. This is, you're dead.
I've got another one for you, but it doesn't have trample.
Okay.
Lord of Extinction.
It's not always a one-hit. It can be.
About 95% of the time, it's a one-hit kill.
I don't know. I've seen a lot of 8/8 Lord of Extinctions.
I have never seen that. I think the smallest I've ever seen it is 10/10.
So we're gonna lose 2 tokens here. Go to 9 poison.
Did it really have to have trample? Or can't you just
If you traded,
one ability?
if you traded trample for infect, I think that would be and kept the casting cost the same.
Yes.
I think it'd have been a much more elegant sort of infected version.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely have heard from certain people that play a lot of the older formats that Blightsteel is just one of the most frustrating things for them about Vintage.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, what it does is it just eliminates from contention numerous card choices that make your deck building choices
Yeah, it's
interesting.
like, I could go get, Inkwell Leviathan. I could go get
Elish Norn
Elish
hits
Norn.
play. How big is its butt?
That was a card that we were talking about boarding out, and
Yeah.
it's actually very important right here.
Is it a 7?
It
7?
is.
So that's a 7, 9, 11. I don't know that that's enough.
It's not enough. It's everything's still. Well, he's actually just going to Slagstorm here, I think. If he just Slagstorms, he just attacks, and it's immediately lethal. Though it's possible that he just doesn't want to.
I mean, it could just be like, be scared of me,
Yeah.
Be very scared.
Well, Blightsteel's down to a 9/9, so it's not lethal now, but yeah, I think he's just casting Slagstorm and killing him. I could see an argument for not casting the Slagstorm, but just to
Just not show them the information.
potentially not give your opponent the information that you have Slagstorm in your deck. But no, this is.
He knows that Pat Cox has mutagenic growth in the deck.
Yeah, it's also a situation where your opponent could theoretically naturalize your boots and actually get rid of your guy.
And you're dead.
Kill you. Okay.
He's like, I remember I got trample. Okay, so going to game 3 now. Pat Cox had to suspect that there was going to be some Blightsteel action that could happen, but one of the things that he's done here is he's clearly got the cards we were talking about before, naturalized, but his surprise he brought in was the Fiend Hunter, which is, if the Swift, the boots are not on, the Blightsteel Colossus, that Fiend Hunter is a great answer to it. Because typically, with only a couple of boots, most of these decks, the Koldatha Forge Master, its ability, takes 3 artifacts to get going. And so if you're taking up 3 artifacts, you actually can't necessarily toss away 6 artifacts to have Swift Foot Boots, and then on top of it, the Blightsteel Colossus. So Fiend Hunter actually does look like a very reasonable card here. The match really turned when his Fiend Hunter, taking out the Koldatha, was Oblivion Ringed. And so I imagine that Pat right now is just kind of like looking to see if there's anything else they should think about to fight the Oblivion Ring battles. And I'm not sure if there really is that much. Gideon Girard could be a possibility as a fog in case things go poorly. You can be in a race and he can go, here's my Blightsteel, and you can go Gideon. That's one possibility. Let's see what he ends up doing, though. Anthony looks much happier than he did at the end of the last game. Last game, you practically could see him kicking himself on camera, and he looks much more upbeat. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here, and I'm joined in the booth by Brian Kibler. This is the Star City Games Live Open Series here in St. Louis. It's round 3. The format is standard. We've seen 6 archetypes thus far. Round 1, we saw Michael Jacob victorious with a 4-color control deck, update to his Worlds list against Green-White Aggro. Round 2, we saw Rookie of the Year Matthias Hunt taken down. He was playing what I guess I would call a blue Wolf Run deck. And he was beaten by mono-red aggro. And now we see Pat Cox, most often known for Zoo and other aggressive decks here, today playing a green-white tokens list, which features 3 mutagenic growth. Mutagenic growth ended up being a critical part of his victory in Game 1 against his his opponent, Anthony Molinari, who actually would have had the win, but a mutagenic growth stole away Game 1. Game 2, Anthony Molinari's rogue red-white Forge Master deck came out with the Swiftfoot Boots. Koldatha Forge Master was rescued from a Fiend Hunter with a Oblivion Ring. Immediately gets a Blightsteel Colossus. Immediately is given haste by the Boots. Comes in, nearly cripples Pat Cox. Not dead, Pat Cox lays Elishnorn, and then on the next turn, Anthony Molinari finishes him off with a Slag Storm. As they finish up their sideboarding, Pat Cox will be on the play here. Pat Cox, 8 mana acceleration in the form of birds and pilgrims. Sideboard things that are of note. Naturalize is the big one, but only 2 naturalize. As Kibler was saying earlier, one of the things is that a lot of players before Worlds were not actually playing very many active answers to artifacts. But now that Worlds has been around, we're starting to see the creep in of anti-artifact spells, which, of course, also in the case of Naturalize, that can hit an Oblivion Ring. But perhaps after this event, we're going to see more anti-artifact spells. We'll have to see. Pat Cox still thinking about his sideboarding, it looks like. Glancing through to make sure that he has everything just right. Some small last-minute change here. So he just changed something in his sideboard. What do you think Pat Cox might have done to change his sideboarding, Brian?
I don't know. I mean, I could imagine him taking out that Elishnorn. I think that Elishnorn, we saw it come into play last game, but it really, it didn't end up having an impact on the game. It's just an expensive card to be trying to play against a deck that's also doing big things, and I don't imagine that's the sort of card that I would personally want in my deck at least.
Let's pretend he has that in his opening hand. He did not do anything on turn 3 when he had 4 mana.
Right.
If that had been, let's say, a Thrun, maybe he could have gotten in a fair amount of damage.
Yeah, I think it's important for Pat to be able to establish an impressive board presence before Anthony can really get his Forge Master shenanigans going.
Who do you think is the favorite here in Game 3 with Pat Cox on the play?
I don't really know. It's not exactly a matchup I've tested very much.
I have not tested this matchup one time. Not once.
From what we've seen from the previous games, Anthony's deck looks like it's pretty well set up to deal with what Pat's doing. I feel like Anthony could have won Game 1, and he did win Game 2. And I think that he's able to really go over the top of a lot of what Pat's sort of big effects are, and he has the sort of removal and action to deal with what Pat's trying to bring at him.
A note from Sam Black. Sam Black says that the salvo from the sideboard is probably an answer to Planeswalkers, because salvo will kill Planeswalkers.
I can see that.
Oblivion Ring kills Planeswalkers, kind of, sort of. We have a turn 1 Bird of Paradise from Pat Cox, followed by a Mountain on Anthony's side. Turn 2 Mirren Crusader.
He keeps playing the cards we say we think he might sideboard out.
Yes. And we see the boots. Boots to you, Ra.
These boots are made for walking. This is telegraphing a Hero of Bladehold. That's a card that Anthony's deck is not particularly well set up to deal with.
Boom. Okay. Right now, what he really, really wants is to be able to draw a Tumble Magnet, I think.
He just drew a Sphere of the Suns, which is a card that he
little-
would have much rather played last turn.
Oh, boy. Look what's happening here.
Does he have no third land, too?
Oh, boy. And Brothers and Sisters, I think that's it.
No, that was a... I thought it was a red mana symbol was actually a Mirren symbol in one of his cards that was flashing back there.
Is there a township, or is it just... No, he doesn't need the township, but I mean, it's a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Township, I think, would have been death.
Hero of Bladehold is a hard card to beat when it attacks.
Yeah. Now, Hero Mirren Crusader is just so much damage.
Yeah, I think it's a million. That's what my math.
I did the math, and I think that you're about right.
Is it dead?
Is it dead?
All right.
Hey,
no, he's not. Oh,
yeah, he is dead.
He goes to untap, but just to scoop them up in an orderly fashion.
Look at that smile from Pat. He's like, yep. Oh, shaking his head. Anthony Molinari.
Killed him turn 4.
Yep.
Wow.
He's like, he gave this look right after he shook his head. Was like, oof, that was a quick one. Oh well, I didn't expect Mugenic growth, says Anthony.